It's October 21st, 2013 in Athens, Georgia. I'm Bob Short, and this is Reflections on Georgia Politics, sponsored by the Richard B. Russell Library at the University of Georgia and Young Harris College. Our guest is Senator Frank Albert, who served in the Georgia Senator and was once chairman of the Richmond County Commission. Welcome, Frank.
Thanks, Bob.
It's good to see you. When I think of Frank Albert, I think of Atlanta, Georgia, Ivy Street, and football.
Yep, Marist is the fond memories from Marist. I'm kind of jealous of the new campus they have out in North Atlanta because we had that downtown area next to the Imperial Hotel where we would march and play football on the same hard pan that they'd been doing it for 50 years. And then we didn't have a home stadium, so we went on the bus that had every game was an away game. So Marist had a pretty good football history, a little bit in the past, but we had a pretty tough time when I was there, but it was good. Good memories.
Well, you were born in Tallahassee, Florida.
That's right.
How did you get to Augusta?
Well, my father was with the U.S. Forest Service, and then we stayed in Tallahassee. My mother was from Florida, from Lake City, and we stayed in Tallahassee till I was about about 7 years old. We moved to Jackson for a couple of years, and then moved to Atlanta. And so I grew up in Atlanta, basically, and went to Marist, and I even went to North Fulton for a year or two, and then I transferred over to Marist.
So after Marist, you went to University of South Carolina.
I went to South Carolina, and then after that, that was when you were able to serve 6 months in the Army instead of getting drafted. So I served 6 months, and then I went to work for the John Deere Company, and they were just getting into industrial equipment, bulldozers, backhoes, that type of things. And I was setting up dealers, and I was able to get the dealership in Augusta for myself. So I moved from Savannah, moved up there with my family, and so we've been there ever since.
When did you first get interested in politics?
Well, actually, it was when I was in college. I'd always been a little bit interested because I was able to vote at 18 years old, and I remember my dad was a staunch Democrat, and we'd watch those conventions on TV back when you had a little 12.5-inch screen and a case about that high, and they'd go into the late at night trying to get the nominee, having 5 or 10 votes. It's not like it is now, where everything's decided before you get there. And also in college, my girlfriend, when I was a senior, was Liz Johnston, whose daddy was a U.S. senator, and he had been governor. And I got I was interested in politics, more interested in women, but a little bit interested in politics. And actually, I would have been better off just to stick with women.
Well, I don't think that's true. You've got a very good career.
Well, I've enjoyed it. I was a Republican then I switched after I got out of the county commission. Only ran one term. I switched over from Democrat to Republican and almost killed my mother because she's the one that thinks the Republicans stole all the silver off the plantation. And but then I ran as a Republican, and thank God Ronald Reagan was running and dragged me into the Senate, and I beat Jimmy Lester. And well, I was on the county commission before that. But
getting back to the county commission, what inspired you to run for the county commission?
Well, I just, I guess I was bored or stupid or something, but I just had always, I did like politics, and I'd helped the other couple of, a friend of mine was running for sheriff, and I was active in his campaign right before that. So I said, well, if he can do it, I know I can do it. So I had a really good campaign committee, and a lot of people helped me, and it worked. Well, there were only 5 of us back then, so it was pretty good.
Do you remember the old Cracker Party?
Yeah, I do.
Tell us about the Cracker Party.
Well, I don't really know that much about Augusta history, but Roy Harris was he was the Speaker of the House back then, and boy, you talk about a staunch Dixiecrat or what, he made Strom Thurmond look kind of liberal, and but that's back. They had some really pretty tough politics back in Augusta back then, and I guess that was during the old county unit system and all that. And but it kind of it's funny seeing all these names, streets named after people like Jack Connell and Tim. I said, what about Roy Harris and all these guys who really were important back in the old days? Everybody's forgotten about them.
Yeah.
And of course they've forgotten about the others too. But it's real easy to forget a politician.
Yeah.
unless they've been real bad.
So in other words, if you want to be famous, be bad.
Hey, that's exactly right.
One term on the county commission and then the Senate.
Yeah, I spent 8 years there.
And that was caused by what? You want to get away from the commission, or you just?
Well, after I got off the commission, like I spent about a year, and then I said, well, actually decided to run against. I was thinking at one time about running for the House against Don Cheeks, and then everybody said, man, he's a Democrat, and he's already got about 75% of the votes tied up, like you did when you ran for the county commission. And so I decided to run against Jimmy Lester, who was the chairman of the banking committee, and
as a Republican.
As a Republican. And like I said, Ronald Reagan was running then, and that's when you could vote the straight ticket stuff, and so everybody would vote for Reagan and just walk out, and everybody else got their votes down underneath. So I won by 59 votes.
Really?
Yeah.
So you go to the Senate. What was your first impression of the Georgia Senate?
Well, my first day in there was the first day I had ever seen the Senate chamber. I didn't even know, and I was just happy to be there, and it just. I really didn't know enough about I hadn't seen the lawmakers like they show now and things like that. But we had 12 Republicans, so it's like being on a good football team or being on the fourth team, and so I got a lot of bench time in, and but I made a lot of friends in the Democratic Party, and so I enjoyed it. But I was impressed with the chamber and the way things ran, but
how is a freshman senator embraced by the other senators?
Pretty good, if you unless you get up there and start causing trouble, but nobody pays attention to a Republican anyway. So I was just kind of just sitting back trying to learn, and every time I'd have a bit everybody said they kind of judge what you're doing on how many bills you get passed and things like that. And we, as a Republican, you just don't get anything passed. And all of my bills I would have to give to Culver Kid or somebody that could get them through. The few things that I was interested in, but I'd go back home and say, well, you hadn't gotten anything passed. I said, you don't think we got enough laws on the books right now? I said, I'm trying to stop some things from being passed. So Zell Miller was real good to me, and he put me on some pretty good committees, like Human Resources. We have a big medical community in Augusta, and I really wanted to be on the banking committee, and I got on that later. And but Zell took, and put me on that Georgia Music Committee, which I really enjoyed being on because I love music, and Zell and I had that in common. But I had a lot of respect for him because he was treated everybody nice. He wasn't like me. He treated everybody nice.
Speaking of Culver Kid. Do you have any Culver Kid stories?
Well, actually, I talk to Rusty every now and then, his son, and I tell him, I said, man, I wouldn't even want to be up there with that Culver Kid because he was sat right close to me, and we'd about 3 or 4. If it got real boring, which it always did in that thing, he said, let's go upstairs and have a drink, And he had those always Crown Royal up in his office, and his office was right above the Senate chamber, and it wasn't hard to talk me into going up there with him, and that was a bit, being with him and hearing his stories. He'd sit on the telephone and transfer half the prison population while we were having one drink, and they had more people asking him for favors, and it was just, it was just a joy to be around him, and we were up there every day, as you know, and. But one funny thing was I had introduced a bill, I guess it was maybe my last year or two in the Senate, and my wife had a wonderful golden retriever dog. In fact, I tell her that's the reason I married her, was to get that dog. And his name was Bro, and he could dive down to 8 feet down to the bottom of a swimming pool and pick up a rock. And he's a wonderful dog. I love that dog, and he loved me. And so we didn't have a state dog. And I didn't think anybody did. We had a state whale, a state seashell, a state snail, everything. I said, well, we ought to have a state dog. So I was trying to get Zell to help me, and nobody really was too interested in it. And the only ones that were interested in a state dog weren't the bulldog. But anyway, one afternoon, my wife, she lived out on West Paces Ferry Road, and she was coming to pick me up and had the dog in the car. And I said, well, come on, let's go up to Culver's office about 6 o'clock and have a drink. And she said, what about bro? I said, we're going to take him up there too. So he's up on the second floor of the Capitol, second floor. So we go to the guard. This black lady standing there. I said, is it okay to bring him up there? She said, well, he looks better than a lot of them going to send the kid's office. Take him on up. So bro sat there in Culver's office while we had 3 or 4 drinks. And but he didn't get to be the state dog. And that's the biggest disappointment of my whole political career.
You served on the famous Culver Kid Committee.
I did when Pierre got to be lieutenant governor after Zell was governor. Pierre, for some reason, thought that I had tried to cause him trouble while we were in the Senate, whatever. But so he didn't particularly like me. So he puts me on all the worst committees he could think of. So he said, you and Culver, and I think Culver tried to get him beat too. He said, you and Culver, but buddies, you're on his, what was that committee? I forget what it's called, a good government?
EREG. I can't remember what it's
anyway, so I was on there, and that was part of my punishment. But he took me off off banking and human resources, but he left me on consumer affairs, which was my favorite committee because we handled all the liquor legislation.
Right.
And there were about 5 of us that were willing to be on there because everybody drank, but nobody wanted to vote for drinking, Yeah. And Culver said they drink wet and vote dry, and they wanted to go back home to the Baptist church and say, I voted against that while they would have a drink under the desk while they voting against it.
Were you there when the lottery passed?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, it was, there was a lot of controversy about that. Roy Barnes was even against it, and a lot of the big people like Home Depot and folks like that felt like all the money, people would spend all their money that they'd be spending at Home Depot to fix up their house or something on the lottery. And, of course, a lot of the local county people were worried about it because we had, like in Richmond County, we've got, on top of the 4% sales tax, we had a 3% local, like education. We had an extra 3%, and they were afraid that it would cut down on people, they'd buy lottery tickets instead of beer where they'd have to pay the 7% tax on it. But and people, the churches were all against it, of course. And it just was a lot of controversy. But, I don't think you'll find a single person in the state right now that thinks it's bad. Zell Miller will live forever and is a savior of a lot of people who weren't able to go to college.
That bill went through the Culver Kid Committee.
It did.
Were you on the committee at the time?
I wasn't on there at the time.
Uh-huh.
And
you think he would have gotten out of any other committee in the Senate?
Yeah, I do, because Zell wanted it to pass, and he could. I think there was enough influence to get it. I think so. Now I don't know because I wasn't an insider, but I just felt like that. He had enough pull to get just about anything done he wanted to.
Yeah.
That's the way I looked at it.
Mm-hmm. So back to your service in the Senate. What was your agenda?
Well, being a Republican, I was just trying to hang on, and but I had a lot of children's issues that I liked, and in fact, I introduced a bill, tried to get this Children's Trust Fund, and Al Scott was the chairman of the committee that was on Children and Youth is a committee, and I was on that committee, and they said, oh, no, that's the way you could check off if you want to give $5 off your income tax refund or something, and that'll never pass, so I really tried hard on that. Next thing I know, the thing he reintroduces is his bill. It finally passes, and I did get invited to go down to the governor's office when they signed the bill. But, it's exactly the same thing I wanted to do. But it got done. Like I say, being a Republican, we were used to having, if we want something passed, we get somebody else to do it for you. Because
How closely knitted were the Republicans? How was your caucus?
Well, we were small and fairly close, but if somebody told me, it wasn't like I had more friends in the Democratic side than I did in the Republican. I mean, they just pretty good guys, but some people you could live without. And I did like Paul Coverdale a lot, but fairly good, but nobody had anything that, if you needed 12 votes, you needed a lot more than that,
Yeah.
And most of the time you try to help some guy, but I just as soon help somebody else on a bill too.
Yeah.
And because, they just didn't have enough clout to really help you get anything done.
So it was not as partisan as it is today.
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how it is now because I've always been on the short end of the stick on all that stuff. So, but I think it would be nice to be on the first team instead of sitting on the bench.
Senator Coverdale was looked upon as a great state senator.
Yeah, everybody liked him. I mean, he was, he just had some good ideas, and nobody, he liked he liked the seat belt law and trying to get that passed, but nobody really disliked him. And there's some people up there that people just don't like, but he wasn't one of them.
Mm-hmm. You served with 2 lieutenant governors. Let's talk about them.
Okay.
Zell Miller first.
He's a friend, and I met him before I got up there, but not well. And we talked about country music and things like that before I went up there, and he was really kind of nice to me, and I got to be good friends with him. I mean, I thought, and he liked me, I think, and because he gave me some pretty good assignments and would do favors for me if I need them and things like that. And then I actually endorsed him when he ran for governor against a Republican, and man, I caught so much hell in Augusta about that. They showed me and my golden retriever sitting behind me as my failed golden retriever bill, and next to Benedict Arnold. And then they wrote an editorial that I was a victim of the Stockholm syndrome. And when I ran for Congress after I got out of the Senate, every Republican convention we would go to, a meeting or anything else where the other candidates were there, on every chair as soon as we got there was a Stockholm syndrome, print of the Stockholm syndrome editorial and a picture of that cartoon with Benedict Arnold and my old dog Bro. So, I wasn't the smartest politician because I really, I wanted to win, but it wasn't like I was going to kill myself if I didn't. And Zell was a very good friend, and I was proud to endorse him. And
how about Pierre Howard?
Well, he sat right behind me, and I was on the Human Resources Committee, and he was the chairman, and I just didn't think at that time that, I liked him okay. He didn't like me, and he's an old tennis player from the University of Georgia, and I think he thought when he was running for lieutenant governor that I worked against him, like I would have any authority, like anybody really cared who I wanted to be lieutenant governor. And but he and I was really kind of mad with him with the committee, with him taking me off of human resources and taking me off of banking, and I had been on reapportionment committee, and I had been on appropriations too, and I got off all those but I stayed on consumer affairs so I could handle the liquor legislation, and but of course the consumer affairs, we had that alcoholic beverages in the new dancing places. We had that come through there, so that was a lot of fun. I can tell you that.
Well, you must have cast some very courageous votes.
Well, see, I don't. The country club crowd, if I voted one way, all my friends on Sunday morning would go there to have a drink. I couldn't face them if I voted against alcoholic beverages in the new dancing establishments.
Well, what other memories do you have about serving in the Senate?
Well, other than, I do remember my most fondest memories come of, of going up to Culver's office. And I do remember the time that he always had those big bags of Crown Royal with it. And so my wife, when she was up there that time, she said, well, Culver, what do you do with all those bags? You must have 1 million of them. And he said, I just keep them. I got a big old duffel bag full of them. And she said, well, you ought to make some material out of them and make some pants. And he said, well, that'd be a good idea if I can get somebody to do it. And she said, well, I'll do it for you. And I didn't even know. I knew she had a sewing machine, but she never had offered doing any sewing for me. So we ended up with a duffel bag of Crown Royal bags, and she brought them back to Augusta and cut them all open and made big material and fashioned, got its sizes and all that, fashioned these pants, and even had a gold drawstring like a Crown Royal bag. And so he wore them after he got him, he felt obligated, of course, to wear him in the Senate. And instead of wearing a sport coat, like a blazer or something, he, which I've got some Madras pants I wear with a dinner jacket that nobody has a fit about. And he wears the pants, a Crown Royal golf shirt, a windbreaker, and a old golf hat with Crown Royal written on it, and goes up there. And Zell said, "Man, we got a dress code in here. You're not going to be able to stay long." And he said, "Well, I want to point of personal privilege, say," and he gets up there and starts talking how we all ought to support the Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And with all this Crown Royal stuff on, and they get mad. And he, like me, can make both sides mad pretty fast. But then finally he goes out and changes clothes and comes back in. But that was probably the funniest thing up there. And that plus my great disappointment at my dog being turned down for it. The vote came up on Friday afternoon, and everybody wanted to go home, and they wanted me to postpone it. It's right near the end of the session, and I said, no, it's not going to get back on the calendar if I don't do it right. And I was telling Billy Harris that, and I said, if you can guarantee me we'll get it back on the calendar, that's fine. It was like 12 o'clock on Friday, and everybody wanted to go home, and so I got up there and went through my little spiel on Billy. I could see Billy Harris going. So I got like 12 votes or something like that. Even the Republicans voted against it because they said it was a ridiculous bill. It's ridiculous to have a state dog when we got a state whale. There hadn't been I own the water all the time. I've never seen a whale anywhere close to Georgia. I've never seen a whale anywhere. And state seashells, state everything, this, that, state insect, state onion, and so I just didn't think it was that irresponsible, ridiculous.
Who were some of the heavy hitters during those 8 years?
Well, of course, Tom Allgood was always in there, and
he's from Augusta.
Yeah, he was like the majority leader, and. Gosh, I'm so old now I can't remember anybody who was there that wasn't any fun. I remember the good time. Yeah. But I just...
you served with Hugh Gillis.
Yeah, Hugh Gillis was one of them. And, Bill English, in fact, I talk to him now every now and then. And he was on the agricultural end of it. And but Hugh was definitely a shaker and mover in there.
Yeah. You didn't serve with Leroy Johnson, did you?
No, I didn't. But Julian Bond was in there, but he was always on the way back from making a speech somewhere where he made $50,000 back when that was some money, Yeah. And but he was nice. He was on the Human Resources Committee and me. But I think I really can't. I wasn't on the inside, so I don't know who the heavy hitters were.
Yeah. Well, moving along, a seat in Congress opened up when Congress Bernard decided not to run for re-election. Yeah. And you offered for office.
Yeah.
And tell us about that campaign.
Well, I was hoping, all of it Richmond County was in there and Columbia County, which are pretty much the part of, well, I guess maybe half of Richmond County was in there. But anyways, enough Republicans in there in the primary. I felt like if I got Columbia and Richmond County, and then Gwinnett County, I knew they had a real big Republican turnout up there. But this guy, Tom Phillips, who was a Republican with me in the Senate, he was running too. And I thought I would get a little bit of vote. But and then Athens was in there, and I figured if I got 3 votes out of Athens, I'd be doing better than I should. But I don't think I got the 3. And that's such a liberal county. But actually, I got in a runoff with a guy named Ralph Hudgens, who had all the religious community behind him. I mean, he did all his campaigning in churches, and they talked about how much liquor I drank and how many wives I'd had and all this. And so I was up here. I got in a runoff with him, and I was trying to get some votes out of Gwinnett County, and I was up here on election day, and I'd see those vans coming with those baby seats in them, and I said, man, it's over up here. So I got on back to Augusta, and so he won that. And and Don Johnson ended up winning the seat, and Don's a good friend of mine. He's here at the University of Georgia now. And so I was kind of glad I didn't have to run against Don because we were good friends, and I'd rather be beat by somebody I didn't like than somebody I liked,
Well, I bet it was a big disappointment.
Not really. I mean, that was the first election I'd lost, and But I had a hard time raising any money, and Don seemed like he could raise money real well, and so now they raise all kinds of money, but I just wasn't able to raise any, and I didn't have the same campaign committee that I had to start with, and so my friends weren't as interested in it as I was. So, but anyway,
You think there's overspending in campaigns?
oh my God, unbelievable.
Do you think there should be more restrictions?
I do. I just wonder how people can give so much money and raise so much money. I'm talking about on the presidential end of it. And you give somebody $500, you feel like you've done a pretty good day's work, but that's nothing. They hardly even thank you now. Back when I was running, if somebody gave you $100, you'd write them a handwritten note and say, "I appreciate that." But now it just seems that I see that get these things in the mail that people running for Congress right now, and they want you to come and pay $2,500 for a table, or I just think there's too much money involved, and I get sick of the ads, and I'm just so glad when they start a year early anyway. But I just think there's way too much money involved. But there's no way to stop it.
Well, there's one theory that if there's money there, people will figure out a way to spend it for you.
Mm-hmm.
They have polls and push polls and
Yeah.
all of that just to take the money.
Yeah.
And they go out and raise it, and that happens.
Well, everybody's got their consultants that make big money, and then they've got all these people on their staffs that make $100,000 and whatever, and then they've got, like you say, everybody's got to have a poll every day. Well, back when I was in there, especially running for the Senate and things like that, nobody ran a poll. If you ran one, you might say you ran one and you were way ahead, just lie about it, but nobody ran.
Well, do you think that there are restrictions on campaign contributions and spending that could solve the problem?
I don't think you'll ever solve it. There's so much money involved, and there are restrictions now if anybody pays any attention to them. And then, like a corporation can't give any money, and you sit down, you're getting ready to write somebody a check out from your company. I said, no, well, you can't write it off anyway, but at least you want to write it out of your corporate account, and but they're fairly strict, I think, on at least they were what little bit I raised. They were, if you had somebody that a band that came and played for you, you've got to tell them how much that cost, and if it's more than what's allowed, you got to pay it back out of your campaign committee. And I just think that I just don't know how you would do it. It'd be fine if they could keep it down to if everybody would agree to not spend it, but with the cost of TV and direct mail, and of course the good thing about the internet now is a lot of people that don't have money can get stuff for free on the internet done, with YouTube videos and websites and things that we just didn't have available to us. I mean, I had even seen during what are those video things, the cartridges, the big old cartridges we used to have for the little ones.
8 tracks?
It was like an 8-track, but it's a VCR. Those things. I saw people that would buy those with for a 15-minute thing, and they're the big ones, and send them out, like 5,000 of them to try to get an ad. That's cheaper than putting it on TV. And say, please pass this on to a friend. And cassette, big cassette.
Yeah.
But I just think there's just maybe the internet will bring it back to a little more real. I know it'll make it where a guy who doesn't have a whole lot of money still has a chance, But before, nobody would know your name or anything else. But you at least you could, with a website and things like that, you can get a little bit of publicity.
After Congress, did you ever consider running for public office again?
If there's not enough money in the world to make me run for anything again, no, I would never. In fact, my wife she loves politics. We watch Fox News. I get 500 stations that I have to pay for, and the only one we ever watch is Fox News. She's very conservative, and I just get sick of it. I finally flip over to HBO. I said, I'll go upstairs and watch Breaking Bad or something. But no, I get sick of it. I really do, and I would never run for anything. But especially now. I mean, I wouldn't even want to be in the state senate right now. There are too many sanctimonious people up there. I'm just not holy enough to be up there.
Okay, so What happened after politics?
Well, actually, I was in the commercial real estate business after I sold my John Deere dealership. And after my wife started this company called Dr. Buck, it was Hollywood-style fake teeth. We sold them all over the country, had a huge business. And so I just went in and started working with her and, and doing all the books and things like that. And now I'm a designated shopper and check writer. So, but we still have a really good business. We've gone. We had so many people copy us on the fake teeth, the ugly teeth.
Yeah.
But at one time it was a really fun business, and we did a real big business. Everybody that bought them had lots of money and all kinds of good stories. And now we've gone to a cosmetic teeth, which is really like a wig for you, a cover up for teeth.
Yeah.
And the only people buy those that don't have any money. And man, it's not much fun to talk to them. If you can't afford to go to the dentist, that's a long conversation where you try to explain to some poor person that doesn't know how to get on the internet or anything like that, how to do it. But we still have a great business, and so I help. I'm still involved in that. I'm, part owner, and but mainly in the bookkeeping and buying and purchasing.
Do you keep your finger in politics? Do you support candidates?
Well, I used to have a rule that I wouldn't give money to anybody that didn't give it to me, and that really whittled it down. But now I supported Nathan Dean Deal. Yeah, I was thinking I supported Nathan when he ran. I like him. I thought he was in the Senate with me, and he was a Democrat, but he's really a nice guy. And I found out that I saw him at the Columbia County Republican women's thing, and he and his wife came in there, and he was making a speech, and they asked me if I'd support him. I said, I will. I'm going home and check my list to see if you voted against my golden retriever bill. And if you did, I won't. And I went home, and he had not voted. I guess he. So I said, well, that's okay. I'll take that as a yeah, that you would have voted for me. So I did support. I did send him some money, and I send some to. We do. In fact, I just wrote a check this morning to a guy who called me, and but I only send it to people I like.
Yeah. Of either party.
Well, except on presidential, I did sent some to. We supported John McCain, but and then we really like Mitt Romney, and so we do, and but it's usually somebody we like, and they got to be conservative too. In fact, I have defriended every liberal I had on Facebook.
I got to check and see what you think about me.
No, you're on there. You just don't ever post anything.
When I do, people say I'm nuts.
Well, the only thing you post is music that your son's doing.
Yeah, that's right, my son's music.
Yeah.
What is your opinion of the Washington scene today?
It is the worst situation that I can possibly imagine. We just got back from a week in Cuba, and I had been there 15 years before illegally. I went legally this time with this gardening group with, I think actually maybe the guy was from the University of Georgia, but now, if you have a religious group or an educational group or something, so we went for a week. And I was amazed at how they've gone in 15 years from where really communist, to they're moving way closer and closer to capitalism, and we're moving back towards them. I said, "Damn, we're swapping places with Cuba," and so when we're going that way and they're coming back the other way. So, but I think it's terrible. You couldn't get me to be up there in Congress. I wouldn't mind being a U.S. senator for like 2 weeks, just for say I'd been there, to see what the perks are. But no, I just. And I just can't imagine how, with the national debt and everybody's so selfish about wanting to be reelected. Everything is reelecting the guy again and again, and it doesn't matter what it is and who gives the money, and it's just, I think it's terrible. I really do. I don't have real good feelings about what's happening. I'm kind of glad I'm 75.
What's your opinion of the Tea Party?
I think it's fine. I think the things that they do, I think the press has really given them a bad rap. But I've even been to one of those things in Augusta, the main reason I was Nikki Haley was running for governor. I just wanted to see what she looked like, and she's as pretty as she, as she looks on in print. But most of the people there, they're interested in cutting down government waste, and it's just, I don't think it's a sin to ask people not to spend a lot more than you've got, and take care of your tax money and things like that. I've never seen anybody that was racist or violent at any of those. Of course, I've only been to one, but it's just the people. And I know some people that, I don't know of anybody that's in any kind of an organization that's the Tea Party, but like a organized group. But I know people that have little stickers on their car and things like that. But most of them are real conservative. But I don't think that. I think they do. I'm glad, but I think the stuff they did up there with the during this last deal, that hanging around there, holding everything up for the, trying to get them defund Obamacare when you don't have the cards to get it done. I mean, that's ridiculous. I don't mind fighting a fight if you have a chance to win it, but I just don't think it did. The Republican Party is going to suffer a tremendous blow from that. I tell you, I think they're popularity now is like 21% or something like that, in the 20s, and I think it's going to be hard for them to come back. I mean, you can't do anything unless you've got House and the Senate, or the presidency in one house or something like that. You've got to have some cards, and they had no cards. But I think it hurts the overall effort of the Republican Party. I think it's damage that's going to be real hard to repair.
Do you think the Tea Party is affecting the Republican Party? Is there a split?
Well, I think there is a big split. I think that Ted Cruz is, and those group, and the Tea Party people up there. I don't really know enough about it because I'm not interested in, I'm not interested enough to really get into it and study it. But I think they've done. I think his stuff, it was mainly for him. He wants to run for president. He wants to raise money, and get more conservative people in. But I just think that's the wrong way to do it, personally.
Are you surprised that the Republican leadership in the Senate has gotten opposition from their own party?
McConnell, well, no, I'm not. It's every man for himself. And they probably figure they can beat him. And I don't see how anybody really owns a seat. And I like to see all of them have opposition, and on both sides of the aisle. But no, I'm glad. I mean, I like Mitch McConnell fine. I like John Boehner or whatever his name is. I like him okay too. But I'm just not into all that stuff. I don't care.
Yeah.
I do care about writing a bunch of big tax checks. So.
So you're in favor of abolishing the IRS?
Yeah, well, I'll go along with that. But you're afraid to abolish anything because what they bring in next is always worse.
Well, let's get back to Frank Albert. You are retired now, and how do you spend your time?
Well, I'm like I say, I spend some time with our business, and but I work out every day. I ride my bicycle for an hour and a half, and then I've got a dog that I take out. Well, I'm down. I don't have any Goldens for the first time in 25 years. One time I had like 4 at one time, and a huge dog lover. And I got a big Maine Coon cat. So I do. I'm real interested in animals, and but I work I'm a big gardener. We do a lot of gardening. We grow a lot of beautiful plants and things like that. We have a real pretty yard, and but I'm the yard man. My wife, she's always saying, you're getting old, we need a yard man. I said, well, when I die, you marry a Mexican, okay? because no other husband's going to take care of this yard. Get a young one, too.
Well, looking back over your career, what do you think has been your biggest political accomplishment?
I think just being part of the, maybe helping a little bit to build the Republican Party, because in those days when I first started got in the Senate, we had 12 of us, and we kept growing a little bit at a time, and then we had more, and around Augusta we had more and more people. And back when I first got into the Republican Party, they'd have a meeting instead. If you'd have a monthly Republican meeting, it'd be in somebody's house, where they'd have served drinks, and they could afford to serve drinks, so they could use one bottle. Weren't enough people there to really knock out a fifth, and. So, and then it's gotten bigger now. You have to have a case of liquor now to run, to have a meeting. But no, it's gotten much bigger, and I think more people are interested in politics for some reason. And you know, it seems like to me, and I'm kind of glad to see this in Augusta, that it's not my crowd; it's their wives that are interested, and a lot of them are running for office. Like Barbara Sims is, she's a representative from Richmond County, and she's been in like a couple of terms at least, maybe 3. And her friends, a lot of them are interested in politics. And I think it's a good thing. So it's just maybe helping the party grow along. And I didn't have any earth-shaking legislation that I was able to introduce on myself, by myself. And but at least I was there and
Right.
helped them.
Well, besides losing your dog bill,
Yeah.
were there other disappointments?
Well, the Children's Trust Fund, I kind of wanted some credit for that, but that passed anyway, so that was important. But there were some bills that were kind of fun that were on there, like when they had the selling alcoholic beverages in nude dancing establishments. That took up a couple of months. It was a lot of fun, and you had some some pro and con on that. I don't know if you remember all that, but. They had a guy over in the house, Luther somebody, who was from right in North Fulton County somewhere. I saw a bridge dedicated to him when I was going to last time I was in Atlanta when I was going out that way. And he would always introduce a bill to abolish, not allow alcoholic beverages in these strip clubs in Atlanta. They had more than Atlanta. We had 1 or 2 in Augusta, but they had Atlanta was a big business up there. And he knew they would always vote it down. Tom Murphy they'd crush it or not even bring it up or whatever. But one day Murphy, I think he was mad with Miller. I think Zell was maybe lieutenant governor then or whoever it was. Anyway, he was mad with the Senate, which is not unusual, Murphy. So he said, well, we're just going to pass that and let them deal with it over on the Senate side. So they did. They passed it, and we ended up with it, and it came to our Consumer Affairs Committee, and there were 5 people on there. So man, it was unbelievable. We had one big public hearing, and Arthur Langford, I think, was the chairman of that committee back then, and David Scott was on there, and we had this big public meeting in the Capitol. And man, you had pole dancers and club owners and preachers and all of them in there, and this guy across that lived across the street from me named Chuck Johnston was there, and he was a headmaster at some private school close by, and he had grown up right across the street from me. I live right near Piedmont and Peachtree in Atlanta, and Ralph McGill lived right down the street from us. And he said, he got up there and made us, he said, oh, Frank Albert's got as much fortitude. He was like Ralph McGill. Of course, we thought Ralph McGill was such a liberal, we couldn't stand him. And so he was saying that I was as good as Ralph McGill and stuff like that, and would do the right thing and stuff like that. And then he found out later that I was going to vote to allow drinking in the strip clubs. And he denied ever having said anything nice about me. I saw him at a Buckhead Boys. I don't even remember that you're talking about. But that thing finally passed, and it outlawed. I was against it. We had 12 people that voted against it, but because I was, if you don't have any regulations on alcoholic beverages in a strip club, they let you bring your own bottle in. You wouldn't have any, children, young people could come in and all that. If you can't control the alcoholic beverages, you can't control anything. A place where it should be licensed. So, but anyway, I think it took old Denmark Groover going to court after it had already passed and been signed by the governor for him to get it declared unconstitutional. And so they're drinking hardy in the strip clubs. Their pole dancers are still doing fine.
Let's talk for a minute about, you mentioned this, about the differences of opinion between Tom Murphy, the Speaker of the House, and Lieutenant Governor Miller. Quite a feud.
Yeah, I think so. But you never know if it's for real or not. I don't know. You know more than I do about it because you're close to Zell. But it would always seem like, we'd be holding up our bills and we'd be holding up their bills. And, and then we'd, it just looked like a lot of. And I never did. I was never really close to Murphy. I didn't know him at all. And so I don't really know about that. But I do know that they was, I always say, oh, Murphy's holding up this and holding up that. And we were doing the same thing to them. I try,
I've always wondered why the General Assembly puts off the budget until the last 2 days.
It's just like anything in politics. It's important. You got to wait till the last minute, and you know, it's just it just seems like that. Well, anything, even now, anything that's important, you just put off to the very last minute. But yeah, some of these things, a reasonable person would do it the other way. But we're talking about politics.
Well, is there anything you might have done differently during your political career?
Yeah, there's one thing I would have done. When I was on the Human Resources Committee, Tommy Olmsted was the chairman. And so for some reason he wasn't there, and he had this dental bill. And the dentists were always trying to keep some group called denturists, these people that aren't dentists that make false teeth. And I guess it doesn't look like it'd have, you know, some people buy them, I guess, I don't know. But their big main thing in life, Martha Phillips is their lobbyist, and their big thing in life was keeping these people from making false teeth. So in this dental bill it was a huge bill with all kinds of stuff in there. Practicing, if you did that, you were practicing dentistry without a license if you made these, and they wanted to make it a felony. And then you know, like if you made a set of false teeth, you'd go to jail. And then they wanted to bring it. Then they decided to bring it down to a misdemeanor of a high and wooden nature or whatever. So Tommy gets me to handle this bill, knowing that my wife is, you know, we're in the fake teeth business with it, but not, you know, not the, you know, the kind that fit on is for Halloween and everything else. Although it is a big business, probably bigger than the denturist business. But so all the dentists tell me that supported me said, man, I said, well, I'm gonna put in there that we're gonna exempt these novelty teeth. They said, oh no, that'll let them in there every time. I said, please don't do that. We'll never bother your company. Everything, you know, probably. So I said, okay. So it's like a Christmas tree. People hanging ornaments on it. You know, when the thing finally passed, nobody knew what was in there. And so it passed with you know, the denturists were out. You know, they weren't able to do it. So they got it signed and everything else. And the next thing you know, as soon as I get out of the office, first thing they do is come after us. They send somebody down from some Department of Health or whatever in Atlanta. Some guy comes in there and they're giving us a cease and desist order from something. And and then I talked to the dental people and they said, well, you know, you know, so they so I got Richard Green. We went up to Atlanta, you know, to this hearing they had on our thing. And then I finally got Jon Stewart, not Jon Stewart, the Daily Show came. They sent a crew down here and stayed a week. And they were, of course, on our side, making everybody out to be fools. And so they went to Atlanta and they chased Martha Phillips all around the Capitol and all that. And but anyway, it was on the TV show was great. It was on. We got a lot of good publicity off that. And I was telling them, I said, you know, these fake teeth. They got mad about the pretty teeth, not the ugly ones. The ones that were that looked like real, you know, looked like dentures that would fit over. If you had a missing tooth or something like that, it would. It was like a wig for your teeth. And I said, you know, it'd be like the same thing. I told them on TV, the same thing as plastic surgeons going after the people that make padded bras. You know, it's just it just doesn't make any sense. It's not hurting that. So anyway, we finally got all that cleared out. But I would definitely, if I had to do it over again, the fake teeth would be, the Hollywood-style fake teeth would be in the bill.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you.
Well, it's been a pleasure seeing you and being here.
Have we forgotten anything?
I can't, you know, I'm 75 years old. I forget a lot of stuff.
So there's nothing else you'd like to tell us?
Not really. I mean, like I say, I've enjoyed talking to you. And probably I'll think of it on the way home.
Well, give us a call and we'll do this again.
Okay.
Glad to have you.
Thank you.